your flesh and blood.
Welcome to Tell Me Your Story. New paradigms for a new world where we're giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here 9 times a week. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We are on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, as well as YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope that you will take time to subscribe and click notifications so that when a new conversation is posted, you'll be notified and you'll be able to tune in, listen in, and learn, and be entertained and inspired. A reminder that Choices, which is my book, 5 Steps for Life, it's available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle with Audible, soon to be released. We also ask that if you can support the work that we are doing financially, we do have a PayPal account. It is there for your security as well as ours. And when they ask for an email address to whom you're sending, please go to richard@richarddugan.com. That's the email address. If you go to richarddugan.com, there is also a link directly to PayPal so that you can send us whatever support you can. And we thank you to those who have helped and to those who will help. We also ask that you take time during this decade of perfect vision, the 2020s, to go within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listen to that still, small voice. And with that, we now take you to our very special interview and guest here on Tell Me Your Story. And welcome to Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, along with my very special guest. She's the author of a fascinating book. We're going to have some fun with this, folks, because some of you may actually remember dealing with these critters out in the wilds, if you will. Julie Wignall is my guest. And she's going to talk to us about her latest release having to do with how to shine your light brighter and transform the world. Oh, we could use some transformation. No, not Transformers. No. Although that's not a bad analogy, come to think of it. I'll have to think about that one. We're going to talk about the extraordinary power of fireflies. Julie, thank you so much for being with us today. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me, Richard.
I know that there are those who grew up in areas of the country, of the United States in particular, and I don't know if fireflies are exclusive to the United States. Maybe it's a specific latitude or longitude. But I know people will go out there in the evening, kids specifically. They'll take a mason jar with a lid that has a bunch of holes in it, and they will go out and try to collect these fireflies that light up at night. And I would venture you've done some research on fireflies and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to start by asking you a question regarding fireflies. And that is, can you tell us how they create that light?
Yes, actually, they have 2 chemicals that are within their body. You don't want to get into all the biology and the science.
No, we don't have to go too far.
But when one, let me simplify. If you've ever done a glow stick that you got from the dollar store or from Walmart, you've taken it and you break it. And what you're doing is there's 2 chemicals inside. Both are non-toxic, but the internal chemical, when it breaks open, connects with the other chemical and it lights up. But a few things about fireflies that you might find interesting. They are found on every continent around the world except Antarctica. And in the human variety, I say that we have fireflies on the Antarctica as well. There are over 2,000 different species, and they glow in more than just one color. You can see them in yellow and green and orange and in blue, believe it or not. So, I mean, this is a group of little tiny beetles that embrace a lot of diversity. And they seemed to fit, knowing that when you talk about fireflies, people go, oh, I remember them growing up. Everybody immediately smiles, and it's a remembrance. I feel that as we grow up, we forget that magic that we each have inside of us, the light that we each have to shine. I believe fireflies have a whole lot to teach us about that. So, and it's not telling people, oh, necessarily new information. I use the fireflies as a metaphor to remind everybody how powerful every individual really is. When you think of the delight that one tiny little firefly can bring and how that actually changes the world. One of the things, Richard, that you talk about is that we need a paradigm shift.
Hmm.
That's the concept of that paradigm shift to say we need to start looking at things a little bit differently. Fireflies, they shine their light not because they're told to, they don't ask permission, they do it just because they can. And we need more people in the world to shine their light and shine it brighter.
Yeah, and it's interesting where we are today, even globally for that matter, and that there are a lot of people who are sort of well, for lack of a better phrase, they're living in fear of what's going on around them, of those who are not shining their light. Some might say, "Oh, yes, they are. They are shining their light." Well, if they're shining their light, why is there so much fear
Ah, you
about
know, when
them?
we talk about universal principles, the
Hmm.
universe is not responding to whether we're good or we're bad. The universe is responding to our vibrations. And so there are a lot of people that are doing that, it's like talking about a genius. Well, there are a lot of geniuses that can do great things, but we've got evil geniuses as well. They're putting out the same type of vibration. They're having a good time with what they're doing. It's resonating and it's growing, which is why today it becomes even more important for those people who are looking for positive change, who want to make a big impact, who are ready to transform the world and do that paradigm shift into something that's better than what we're dealing with today. Now's the time to step up and do that. And I think fear is universal in terms of how people feel. Yes, I'm just reminding people of things that they already know if they take the time to listen,
Hmm.
um, to say, I do have this light and I do have something to say and I do want to shine brighter. And we're all fearful. It's in Fear is not something that you overcome. We all have those inner fears, and it's different for everybody. Most people I think are still dealing with childhood trauma, whatever
Yeah,
that was, as
yeah,
adults. And we work on trying to heal that. That fear comes out, and I'm not good enough. I'm not deserving. Um, I didn't get a degree. Oh, I got a degree, but I got a degree in the wrong thing. We come up with all of these obstacles where we become our biggest blocks in terms of really shining brighter. And I think it starts with that work, that internal work of knowing why you're here and that you're here to make things better. And that before you were born, everybody talks about, oh, what do you need to do if this were your last day on earth? And I don't know about you, but when somebody pulls that line on me, I freeze. Like, if someone said, this is your last day on earth, I would be like a deer in the headlights going, okay, I'm just waiting, I'm waiting. But what about the contracts that we made with ourselves before we were born? Each of us came in to bring some light into the world, and it's time to honor those commitments. And how to shine brighter in a world where things are really, really tough. I teach a method of shining in the spaces between. You can have a lot of factions that fight amongst each other. Let them fight. A firefly sees beyond what is, and they see what needs to happen. Whether it's healthcare, it's what do we do with the homeless, all of these issues that are around the planet today. And a lot of people have ideas and have information and say, this is what we need to do. And my message is stop waiting and find those spaces in between. Don't wait for somebody to give you permission. Don't wait for someone to say it's okay to do. In quantum physics, we talk about energy. We talk about it in terms of the field. And if you I'm going to take a really crazy physics, quantum physics metaphor and try to break it really simply. If you get down to, we all learned about the chemistry and particles and ions and atoms and subatoms, and you get down and down and down until they're so tiny, nano atoms. Well, what is the space that's in between them? And most people think that that is just empty space. And we know now scientifically that that's not true. That's energy. And that's what a lot of quantum physicists call the field. And it's that energy. When people talk about the power of prayer, what they're doing is they're navigating those spaces in between. When people talk about manifesting things, we're really talking about just how aware you are, what your vibrational level is, and how you're maneuvering that. When we begin to maneuver in those spaces between, we just get stuff done.
It's fascinating when we start looking, excuse me, by the, it start taking a look at, metaphorically speaking, at the natural world. One of the things that I often say on this program, love to have your play on this. Nature is our greatest teacher. Do you believe that?
Absolutely. I've had many mentors, and I agree with them 100%. If you want the answers to anything in the world, spiritually, metaphysically, biologically, and you can find all those answers in nature. It it's all there. And the more we learn about it, the more we find out about it, the more that's validated from the fact that today we know trees talk to each other just because they're talking in a language that we don't understand. And fireflies actually are shining their lights to communicate with each other. And there are two amazing places. We're still searching for more where we have what are called synchronous fireflies. And that's when the fireflies, they tend to come out later at night and they light up the forest by the hundreds and the thousands. And you'll have a group of, 1 to 200 fireflies that will flash and blink and send a message. And you'll have another group that answers them. So when we talk about that law of attraction, how do we attract things? It's like being a lighthouse and sending that light out to the universe on a wavelength that the right group is going to respond. And that's exactly what the synchronous fireflies do. And imagine if one little firefly can bring so much magic and light and delight to the world, what that does when you start working within a group of people who are all shining their light.
Mm. Julie Wignall is my guest, and you are listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host here on the program that wants to bring you new paradigms for a new world, give you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We repeat those regularly, sometimes throughout each of our programs, but it's truer now than ever before because the world has changed, but at the same time, there isn't a whole lot that we can really do as far as affecting the global conditions, the individual localized kind of conditions. Man, I could be wrong. Julie may say, "No, Richard, you're wrong." But I'm curious, tying in to that, about some of the lessons that we have forgotten. What are those that you have discovered that we have forgotten, but now maybe through you and others, we're starting to remember? Oh yeah, I forgot about that one. I did learn that one already.
In the Akan language in Africa, they have a term that's called Sankofa. It means go back and get it. And they depict this with a bird that looks a little bit like a goose, and it's heading in one direction, but its head's turned back to like an egg, a seed of the future on its back to say you can't go forward without going backward to remember what you've lost. And there are things that we've lost that we turn around. The number one lesson that you're taught in biology is everything's connected. I don't care what religion you ascribe to, the number one thing that every religion teaches is everything is connected. You
Hmm.
go into metaphysics, everything is connected. And now we go into quantum physics and we can validate and say, yes, everything is connected on the biological level, on the spiritual level. It's multi-dimensional, things that we don't completely understand yet, but we do know that we're connected. And when we talk about others, what Buddhists have been saying this for thousands of years, there are no others. There's only us.
Mm.
And we are one. We're connected with everybody. I believe we need to go back and we need to remember that. We also need to remember the importance of multi-generational activism when we want to move forward, whether it's with a business, an action, to be an activist for something. Today, the world is filled with youth-led movements, senior-led movements, that we need more human-led movements.
Mm.
I always say that when I'm working on a new project, the ultimate way to do this is to incorporate someone who's 90 years old, someone who's 70 years old, 50, 40, and we need that 10-year-old because that 10-year-old is a lot pure and closer to that source energy of clarity, of remembering what's important and why they're here than the rest of us are. As we grow older, we become enculturated and we're told different things are important and we kind of forget our light. We forget that essence of who we truly are and we forget how powerful we are. We allow society and our cultures to kind of push us down
Mm.
and we accept that. We don't have to accept that anymore. And that's, like you talk about, that becomes part of our paradigm shift. And in terms of changing things, we need to be working from the ground up um, with ourselves, with how we treat not just others, but how we treat ourselves. I'm sure you've come across people who are, oh, so nice, but then they beat themselves up. I'm so
Mm.
stupid. I'm so this. No, we have to start with treating ourselves with kindness and gentleness, and then treating the others around us the same way. But there are a lot of things that can be done that we need to be thinking differently. Everybody is on the bandwagon in terms of the environment, as well they should be. We need a lot of change. But even the environmental movement has become a lot of bullying
Mm.
about what you eat, what you do, what you don't. I have featured 20 people around the globe that are real thought leaders and change makers in my book. And one of them is a designer. And how many people do you know that say, I'm going to go to the grocery store this week. I'm going to make a commitment to eat really healthy. And you buy all kinds of fruits and vegetables, but then life happens and they sit there. And the next thing you know, you're checking in the refrigerator a month later and going, oh my gosh, I have a science experiment in here. Um, what's going on? Well, it's really easy to say, well, terrible you. You should not have done that. This is so wasteful. One of the biggest things that we have in our landfills is food. But maybe we need a paradigm shift, and that's not the way to look at it anymore. And
Yeah.
maybe instead of beating up people, we say, let's go back. Layla Ajarlu, one of the people I've written about, actually did research on this and said, let's go back and instead of bashing the consumer, let's look at our refrigerators. Maybe we need to be designing our refrigerators better so that that food holds for
Mm.
3 to 4 weeks while life happens.
Yeah.
That it's not, we seem to take the blame all the time, consumers. You drive a car, you eat food, you do whatever, you're living your life. You're supposed to live your life.
Yeah.
And we need to come up with different designs and different approaches to make things happen. And we need to stop beating each other up.
Well, I'm with you there, and it's interesting. I was talking with someone not long ago, and they brought up and they brought up the issue of single-use packaging and how bad that is, and so forth. And what are you going to do about that, Richard? You're on that side. Why don't you? How are you going to do that? And I said, and I started thinking about that, and I started thinking back to my growing up, both as a child and teens and 20s, so forth. And I'm going, the only difference between then and now is that we call it single use packaging. Okay.
Absolutely.
That's the only difference. We have always had, for the most part, single-use packaging, especially when plastics came on the scene. Okay, and I'm not bashing plastics. I'm just saying that that's when that really took off. We had glass and we had aluminum, we had tin, that kind of stuff, but it was still single use. Although the glass, you could, if you had mason jars, you were doing preserves or you whatever, and and I thought, wow, I don't see what you're complaining about because we're all doing the same thing. Now, are there better ways? Well, it's kind of like what you're just talking about maybe redesigning the refrigerator. That's just one possibility. The
And
other is
designing
maybe,
those bags.
yeah, maybe the other solution is don't buy so much. Oh, I know you don't want to make a lot of trips to the store. Do you know that I only work from the radio station's facilities 3 days a week? I work from home 2 days a week. And on those 2 days, I do everything I can to make sure I do not leave the house until the next morning when I go into the station. And when I'm down there, even if it means after 5 o'clock, I have to go to the grocery store and I pick up a few items, then I'll do that. Yeah, I won't go get home till 5:30, 6 o'clock. Okay, but I'm still making exactly the same trip. I'm not making an extra one. And that's what I'm kind of getting to because I know there would be those who say, well, yeah, but if I have to go to the store over and over and over again, then consolidate, plan it out, and that kind of stuff. And we're kind of getting off on a tangent here, but the point is what you've just said. We've got to start thinking differently. Now, the working from home or working remotely for me did not come about because of COVID. I was going in 5 days a week from March 17th of 2020. Okay. But because I was the only one there, I was the only one there. Um, so, then that worked out. And then, of course, as time went on and programming shifted and changed to where it was all automated Tuesdays and Thursdays, I made the shift saying, well, look, if I don't have to be there, why would I need to go down? And so forth. So that was
It's
and
a
it,
good tangent that you're
yeah.
going on
But
because
it drives me crazy though, because um, I'm unable to associate now with a calendar in a proper way because if I'm home, for example, this conversation is taking place. I'm remotely. I am at home, and so the next day, is it Monday, Wednesday, or Friday? Did I just have 2 days off or just one? And now I got to figure out, okay, where on the calendar am I? Thank God for the computer. All I have to do is click there and it'll show me where I am. But if I just start thinking about it, I have to remind myself, oh, okay, today is Tuesday. So that means tomorrow. Okay, and the programming tomorrow is, yeah, I need to be there at 10 o'clock. And this is a whole different thing, and I'm getting used to it, and it's kind of nice. And yeah, there's a little savings there, and of course I'm here with my wife, and she's retired, and she likes that. She likes the fact that I'm working from home. I don't want to get too far afield here because I want to dive
yeah, but
into another area. Go
as
ahead.
you said though, as you said, Richard, life is changing. And how we work is changing, how we shop is changing. And as we become aware of it, those of us who are aware of it, we're on the transition team. So we need to be thinking about how do we want to transition? What do we want this to look like? And yes, there are a lot of issues. One of the individuals that I highlight in the book is Ellen MacArthur, who started the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. You may know her. She was a world famous sailor. And Ellen has promoted the concept of a circular economy, where let's think about what we're using, whether it's the plastics, whether we're gardening, whatever we're doing, but from the beginning to the end, where we start, where we finish. We eat our food, how it grows to when it's time to put the rest into the rubbish bin.
Yeah.
But we need to be thinking about it, but it's not perfect. And it doesn't have to be
No.
perfect. We need to give everybody the opportunity to experiment, to find out what are other options to plastic
Yeah.
bags. The reason plastic became so important in the first place is because it's got these little polymers that can be turned into shirts and blankets, and
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
it's got a lot of versatility.
Yeah. Well, I
But
caught a lot of heat when after being diagnosed back in 2020 with type 2 diabetes. And by the way, I reversed it in a month and a half.
Wow.
And kept it down until my father's passing. It's amazing. I can't believe that it's been 2 years. March 1st, 2023. And then my blood sugar spiked, and my doctor would not accept the reality and the possibility that due to the stresses and the hormones that change, that my blood sugar would go up because I didn't change the diet. But my point is that I was a big soda drinker, big soda drinker. Now, as a kid growing up and delivering newspapers and bicycling everywhere wasn't an issue because I was
Right.
burning off the sugar.
Right.
Now I drive and not so much. But here was the criticism that I received when I decided to switch from the soft drinks and I'll go ahead and give the name of of the product, a sparkling ice, and they have different flavors, and it's not with sugar or corn syrup. It's sweetened otherwise, and it comes in these cylinder bottles, plastic bottles. And somebody shortly after I mentioned it oh my God, you need to switch out of the away from that to something else that's not in plastic. And I said, hold it, stop. Give me some credit for making the first transition and let me sit there for a while, okay?
Right.
You know, because this product doesn't come in anything but the plastic bottles. All right. In any event, um, I made a shift. I made a change due to my desire to be around until I'm 100 plus. And that's 35 years. I've got
Wow.
that I want a quality of life as well as the quantity. So it's what you're saying is absolutely true. I want to shift to something else here in just a moment, but I want to remind you that we are talking with Julie Wignall, and her book having to do with fireflies. I find this fascinating. She has something we're going to talk about here in a minute, and it has to do with flying lessons for fireflies. We'll talk about that as we continue here on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. We're talking with Julie Wignall, and she is sharing with us her insights to fireflies. It's really kind of fun, the extraordinary power of fireflies. One of the questions that I used to ask people on this program, as part of the three questions, it's not the part of the three questions now, but it was at the end of every program, which I'll be asking you. One of them was, how powerful are we? Because you mentioned that we are powerful. And I've even put it in the context in a material sense, although it'd be more metaphorical, I would have to say. We are more powerful than all of the atomic bombs released in testing as well as in warfare
Yes.
over in the past century. And then some. The things that we can accomplish as individuals, but also as a species, are absolutely incredible and remarkable. And it's you alluded to this also, that we have forgotten that. So I'm curious as to, I asked you earlier about the lessons we've forgotten. What about those that we need to learn?
We need to learn, Richard, that we are powerful
Mhm.
without limit, beyond anything we can even possibly imagine. Um, there are people who will say, you know what? Sea stars, if they lose a leg, they can grow back. The only reason why human beings can't is because we don't think we can.
Mm.
You hear this in terms of miraculous recoveries, people who are doing amazing things, curing diabetes, changing their bodies, changing their lives. They're stepping into their power. And that becomes, that's the most important lesson that I think we all need to learn. We all need to gain some clarity in terms of what gives our life meaning, which I talk about in the flying lessons for fireflies, which is a free download on my website, just to get people thinking, what gives your life meaning? What makes you happy? Many years ago, I had the opportunity to work with 15, 16-year-old boys that were considered at-risk students. They had all been kicked out of school. They were in special camps. The parents were beyond knowing what to do with them. And working with the boys, I one day said to each one, If I were your fairy godmother and I came and I knocked on your door and I said, I'm here to grant any wish that you have to make you happy, what makes you happy? What would you want? And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm going to get I want to be a famous rock star and I want to be a billionaire. And they all stared at me and everybody got very, very quiet. And one of the boys said to me, no one's ever asked us that before. No
Hmm.
one's ever asked me what makes me happy. And I started thinking, when we're little kids, we know what makes us happy,
Yeah.
what color makes us happy, what toys we like, where we want to go. We want to go to the park, to the zoo, and then we begin to get enculturated as adults. There's Richard who goes, oh, but I want to go to the museum, and an adult goes, no, not today. You don't want to go, and you start getting these messages. Oh, I don't want to do that. We need to step back into what makes us happy. What was fascinating was over the following week, I get these tidbits of what makes these kids happy. And there were little things that came out. Like, I was thinking about it. What really makes me happy, one of the boys told me one day, was waking up on Sunday morning when everybody else is sleeping and it's just my dad and me, and we'll make pancakes for the entire family. And I realized when we talk about really what makes us happy, it's those little things,
Hmm.
like watching a firefly. It's the little things, it's the moments, it's the connections that we make, the times that we share with others. It's not these grandiose awards, um, or what we've accomplished, because and we say, oh, it's not the destination, it's the journey, but we really don't understand what that means. We're constantly saying, I'll be happy after I achieve this goal. I'll be happy after I achieve this goal. We keep putting it in the future because as soon as we achieve one goal, we're human. We go, oh, well, that's fun, but look, there's a new mountain over there I want to climb. There's always a new goal, and we forgot that we need to be having fun along the path to get to that goal and not wait.
Hmm. I couldn't agree with you more. Th- Uh, I don't recommend this literally, but more metaphorically. Um, I've often thought of this with a lot of the conflicts that have gone on, both globally as well as within companies and families and so on and so on. And if there's a group of individuals that's being suppressed, oppressed, etc., and there's only one or two that are doing that, the bullying, we'll put it in that context. Um, you've heard this line, I'm sure, in a movie or a television program, a drama, where you've got this one individual who has a gun pulled on, I don't know, 7 or 8 or 9 different people. And of course, usually the 7 or 8 or 9 people usually acquiesce and they follow because the person has a gun. Well, if there's one person and there's 8 or 10 of you, this other person can't kill you all.
Right.
So rush them. Now, I'm not saying literally do that. Don't, unless you really feel like you could, you know, subdue them and turn the tables. But it seems as though that's a certain element where we have given up our power. Someone is holding something over us, and we think, and I'll use this my own personal perspective, my own observation. Born and raised Catholic, raised in that philosophy. Um, Worked at a Christian radio station for 15 years in the 80s and the 90s. I've studied all kinds of different religions. Metaphysical Primer is the autobiography of a yogi. I was a Baha'i in the 90s for a year and a half. I've studied this and that and the other thing, and it just astounds me how those who have controlled the documents have made some serious mistakes by leaving certain things in that tell us that we have the power, that we are the power. And yet we continue to allow the outside world to control. But here's the twist on it from my perspective. the power we have is within. And the first power trip or control of that power needs to come from within us.
Right.
We need to learn how to do that. Have you any suggestions in your book on how to access that extraordinary power of the firefly?
Yes. At the end, because actually at the end of each chapter, I have an exercise. It's not good enough to me to just have a book to say, oh, here are different thoughts and ideas, and here's how you can incorporate them. I provide exercises to give you a chance to think, how do I want to incorporate this into my own life? Like I said before, I think we all are dealing with childhood trauma that comes when that we spend our adult lives trying to figure out how to heal. I take my background in biology and conservation, and I've overlapped it with over 40 years of studying Jungian psychology. And I find it fascinating that when you deal with a lot of these people, start asking people, and here's a trick for anybody who's listening in, start asking people about their childhoods, about growing up. And you begin to find a little bit out about the trauma, or the things that we kind of felt growing up that
Mhm.
society kind of dampened down and said no. I spent 13 years working with a corporation, a Fortune 500 company. And it was very interesting when I would sit down with a lot of these other corporate guys, and there were some people who were great, there were some people not so great. And the first question that I learned to ask was, so are your parents still alive? And are you still close with them? And I learned that most of us, which is fascinating, that we're in these executive positions, we all had father issues.
Mm.
Oh, no, none of us had a good relationship with our father. I could connect with this conversation with any of these other people because we'd all been let down. We'd had a lack. There's still grief. There's still pain there. So, what do we do as grown-ups and as adults in this corporate field? Well, the corporation is run by a mega billionaire CEO. So what are we doing? We're all trying to get that approval. Everybody wants the same thing. Everybody wants to be seen, everybody wants to be heard,
Mhm.
and everybody wants to feel that they're special. And we're all looking for that approval from our parents.
Yeah.
And when we didn't get it, we spend a lot of our adult lives looking for it, and that can come out in all kinds of different behaviors. But when you can learn to recognize it in other people, you can start beginning to recognize it within yourself. Just say, okay, where do I need? And it's not completely healing because we never lose that pain, but I always teach that you need to bring that in and acknowledge that pain,
Mhm.
or grief or whatever you're dealing with, and you have to incorporate it to make it a part of you. That becomes the dark side. And as I remind people, you don't see fireflies during the day. Fireflies shine the brightest when it's dark.
Right.
So that's embracing that shadow part of us to say it's okay. We've all got that. We
Mhm.
need to learn how to incorporate it and then learn the gifts that it brought, because it does bring gifts. It makes us more compassionate, it makes us more human, more empathetic, more aware of other people.
It's amazing how we have slowly acquiesced and given up our powers, and we don't even realize it. We really don't. I find it fascinating using this analogy. There are those in this country, but around the world, who do not want their government, for example, to be surveilling them in any way, shape, or form. Not by cameras, not by wiretaps, and the list goes on. And yet, what have we done? Globally, what have we done? We carry with us the very thing that they absolutely love that we are being surveilled by. Now,
That's right.
Edward Snowden, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, was a hero. All right, by exposing what he exposed. WikiLeaks, the same thing, a hero. You can disagree with me. That's just my observation. And I'll tell you why. As one who believes in a higher power, a divine being, if you will, and I may end up revising that, considering I think it was the Young who made the comment that there is only one mind in the universe, and we're all part of it. All right. So if there's only one mind, that means, from my perspective, and of course, if I want to take it back to Christian philosophy, that the supreme being, the creator, is omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent, knows it all, past, present, or future, right? In addition to, on the day of judgment, my saying to the creator, if there is a day of judgment, sorry, this is on you. You knew all of this was coming. You set all this in motion. I did the best I could with what you gave me. Oh, by the way, I recognize that my arguments are a moot point because, oh, you're the supreme being. You're going to do with me what you want. But I go back to the fact that, from my perspective, for me alone, if the creator knows everything, the light and the dark of me, what difference does it make if 8.5 billion other people do? And most of them don't care. They're just doing what they can, just getting from day to day. And then there will be those who will try to take advantage. Sure. But what happens when I die? So why would I think you have any leverage over me while I'm alive? You want to do all of that stuff? Fine. I'll just start over. I started over from zero when I came into this world through my mother, and I like I said, 35 more years. I think I can start over with that 35 years and begin again. There are ways of doing that, I hope that doesn't happen. That's not, I don't want to bring that on myself, the whole law of attraction thing. But the reality is that if you are someone who has a spiritual bent to you, a philosophy that teaches that there is a higher power, we can call it whatever you want, the force, love, and so forth. And I also trust the universe.
Right.
Now, I can't control the actions of other human beings, and neither can the universe. Okay? Can't do it. I can only control me. And some days I'm fairly good at it because I get swayed. We all get swayed. This is where this whole power of the firefly comes in, doesn't it?
Well,
Where
and
we've got
that's
to
why
learn how
I
not to
don't.
get swayed.
Right, and that's why I don't think that much in terms of judgment, because I come
Yeah.
from the belief system that the whole reason for us being here in this physical body in the first place is to experience everything that there is
Yeah.
about being human.
Hmm.
That's the ups, that's the downs. And if we're going to look at something to make the world better, we start with healing. We start with healing ourselves. Now, I'm going to get real controversial here and tell you that, when I look at the Middle East and everyone goes, oh, we got to make peace in the Middle East. And everybody's talking about these big government heads talking about what they're going to do, what they're not going to do.
Hmm.
You have people, you have people that are hurt. How do you create a terrorist? You create a terrorist because they're in a lot of pain. So that terrorist comes and they go and they kill someone else because they're in so much pain. That, of course, doesn't heal the pain, but you've just created another terrorist who now feels your anger and your wrath until we can get to the point where we start on a journey of healing and acknowledge that pain to
Hmm.
say, no, we need to get together to work for a better future. It doesn't matter what those powers that be at the top do, people are people. And people are going to respond. There's a story about a man riding an elephant, and the small man on top of the elephant represents thought and his thinking, and the elephant represents his emotions. Well, guess what drives us? It's the giant elephant. It's those emotions that take us back and forth. And I think it's also really important for people to know that there are a lot of different paths. It's about reclaiming your power, but it's not, here's the three-step process that everybody needs to do because it's going to be the same for everybody. And I really paid attention to this, which is why I've incorporated so many different people around the world. You buy a diet book and they say, well, this is the only way to lose weight. You buy a book about health, this is the only way to get healthy. Well, my concept is there are a lot of different paths that lead to the top of the mountain. And
Hmm.
it's a matter of knowing those basics and empowering yourself with the tools so that you can step into the power, but that the path that you choose is of your own choice.
Hmm. Yeah. And that ties into, of course, my book, Choices, 5 Steps for Life, where we're encouraging people to make a choice. A lot of time, and yes, it is true that not making a choice is still making a choice. You're choosing not to choose. All right, that's fine. That's perfectly all right. There have been times when I will not do something because I refuse to participate in something that has absolutely no relevance to my life and my well-being, in spite of the potential unintended consequences. And we don't know what those are sometimes. We're talking with Julie Wignall. We're talking about her book, The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies. And by the way, I'm going to tell you about something that you can get a copy of, and stay here because we got more on Tell Me Your Story. I'm Richard Dugan with Julie Wignall, and we're talking about the extraordinary power of fireflies. How are you ready to keep shining bright? Well, you can download a free copy of Flying Lessons for Fireflies, and you can join the community at extraordinaryfireflies.com. Extraordinaryfireflies.com. Click on that, and it will take you to the link where you can download, just like I did. Yes, I did. You can download the little booklet. It's only 14 pages long. It's called Five Powerful Exercises to Help You Shine Brighter Right Now. And there's something that tells me, Julie, that learning how to do that um, isn't just about making this a better place for everyone. It's about making me a better person than I was yesterday. And that isn't to say that I wasn't a good person yesterday. It's just saying that there's always room for improvement. I've kind of brought that to the forefront, and that tomorrow I'll do the same thing. I will see what I can do to make some little adjustments and improvements to make myself a better person than I was today.
It's
That's
about
the
growth.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
about growth that, we can't stay stagnant. We need to continue learning. We need to continue growing. One of my sayings with fireflies is fireflies don't seek perfection, they seek growth.
Hmm. I heard something just the other day. I I think that I will accept what has been said, but not necessarily agree with it exclusively. That they say this is not a schoolhouse. This is not a place where we're here to learn stuff. Well, I don't know of any other way to put it because, first of all, and again, this is mine, not anybody else's. From the Catholic perspective or the Christian perspective, I have never sinned. Okay. From the human perspective, and I was challenged on this once, I have never made a mistake. Ah, how dare you? That's blasphemy. No, it's not. I just call it something else.
Mhm.
It's a life lesson, or if you will, a lesson learned, however you want to phrase that. And I have learned that if I do something once and then I end up having to do it again a second time, when the third situation develops where I did it the first and the second times, that tells me, well, the first and the second times obviously didn't make a difference. So I better choose something else. And that's what I'm talking about. I, and yet there are people who want to post or attach judgment to the things that we do in our lives. Um,
And
I think,
that's where we need to learn to become unconventional.
okay, how do we do that?
And I say that because people are judgy and people point at look at what goes on social media. We want to move past that, and it's not rebelling against it. It's not fighting against it. I don't even think it's resisting. I think it's becoming unconventional. I'm not looking to fight with what society is doing. I'm looking to live my best life and to have the biggest impact that I can have. And that might seem unconventional to other people because it doesn't fit within that container
Hmm.
that we're expected to fit in terms of our society. But my point is that when we all begin to be a little bit more unconventional, the unconventional begins to become conventional. As an example, I was adopted a long, 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 long time ago, but at the time, it was not acceptable. My mother adopted me not because she was rebelling, not because she was making a statement, because it's what she wanted to do. It was unconventional. And this was a time where they still tried to convince women to go away and come back 9 months later and say, "Oh, the baby's mine." And to give you an idea how long ago this was, my original adoption papers were handled by the Humane Society of the United States, the same people who deal with cats and dogs. But look at this today. There were a lot of people who did that unconventional act of adding to their families through adoption. And today it doesn't have the same stigma attached to it that it once did. And that's the power of stepping into what you know is right, the life that you want to live, and the impact that it has all the way around.
I'm looking through this booklet of yours, this 14-page booklet having to do with these five different lessons, if you will, the five powerful exercises to help you shine brighter right now, and these are the flying lessons for fireflies. And one of the interesting questions that you ask, and I really like this. What are your core values? And then there's the second next page that goes down the list of all of these different potential values. But I have to tell you, the one at the top, the first one, um, a lot of people have talked over the years, especially in the last few decades, about tolerance. I refuse to be tolerant because tolerance carries judgment of that which you are being tolerant of.
Right.
I'd rather take the first one, acceptance.
So
Now,
that's a really good point that you're bringing up, because to me, the next thing, not only choose what your core values are, but
mhm,
how you define them.
yeah.
Because, and to ask someone else who might see tolerance completely different than you, and you go, okay, well, at least I know how you see it, but that's
Mhm,
not how it resonates with me.
right.
But to know how we're defining these things. When I say, I have ethics, I have integrity, that has a strong meaning for me that I've heard other people say, oh, I've got ethics and I've got integrity. And it's like, well, then why did you just screw that guy, financially or in terms of the business deal that you did? Because that's not really ethics or integrity. How do you define it? And just like you said with tolerance, yes, when you define it like that, tolerance is pretty judgy. And
Mm,
if that's not what you're looking to be, you want to stay away from that. But for us to really know how many people are there who have become very quote unquote successful by society standards, or we've got major celebrities that are really unhappy.
yeah.
I think that the core reason for that is that they haven't delved into what really makes them happy, and they haven't delved into what their core values are. Once you know your core values and you become aware of them, you act on those every day. They determine the choices we make, the paths that we take.
Hmm.
If you have core values that include integrity and ethics, you're not going to go to work for a drug cartel
Yeah.
because This doesn't fit within your core values.
Yeah.
So you're not going to join a gang.
Yeah. These five exercises, the one that I found so interesting, in addition to the one I've already mentioned about core values, you used the word define. The third one is, how do you define success? Now, this is interesting. Once again, this is mine, nobody else's. Okay, so don't get all bent out of shape. I'm trying to get rid of the words success and failure.
I like
Okay,
that.
because it has created a lot of hardship for a lot of people. I think, and you know what just flashed in my mind? There's a beautiful song by Dan Fogelberg, the late Dan Fogelberg, having to do with John Sutter's Mill. Now, for
Ah,
those, and very briefly, John Sutter was the man who found the first nugget of gold in a riverbed. And by the time he died, he had not one penny to his name. But what happened was people heard about it and it spread like wildfire. And the next thing you knew, you had the gold rush of the 1860s or 1840s and 50s into the 60s. And people would cross the wide open expanse of what was then the wilderness of America. Some of them made it to California. Some of them stopped along the way and said, no, we're going to stop here. We're going to homestead. We're going to build our lives here. Others didn't make it. Some of them crossing the Rockies, they died with the rains frozen in their hands. Others were killed by the natives at that time, and so forth and so on. But for some reason, many people, most of these people thought that they would have great success if they just went somewhere else and dug in the dirt to try to find that gold. And it seems like that's where we are. We're still there today.
we are, which is why we need to redefine that and
Mm-hmm.
raise a great point. Should we even be calling it success? We have this big thing about success and failure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's really sad. We have these kids that are incredibly, incredibly bright, and we put them in gifted and talented programs, and they graduate at the top of their class, and they end up not doing much of anything with their lives. And they've done research on this, and it's because they're afraid to fail. They're
Yeah.
so used to always getting the best grades and the best this and the best that, that they're afraid to fail. And it's not failure. I always say if you're going to fail, you fail forward or fail up, make it bigger, and let's call it something else. But, we need to create the world that we want to live in. And
Mm-hmm.
if you think about, oh, we go to our college reunions or our high school reunions or family, how are you doing, Richard? Oh, I'm doing great. And I've done this and this. And we have to create all these successes. It's exactly what we see on social media because they don't show us behind the scenes. And we need to be more authentic if we want other people to be authentic, to say, you know what, I just did this whole big thing and it just busted.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we are authentic and open with that, it allows other people to go, oh, I did the same type of thing. When I worked with zoos and aquariums and I worked my way up, I had worked with as the director of education staff originally. And we used to share problems, what's going on at your facility, what's going on with mine, we've got a problem with this, and we would help each other work as a collective to find new solutions. And all of a sudden, I'm a director. Once you become a director of one of these things, well, you can't let anybody know your problems. And you go to these conferences and you share these scientific research papers, and you can't let anybody know that you've got a problem with personnel or staff or food sources that you're looking for. It's just everything is great. And I found that even as a director, I always continued my relationship with educators just to get back into that. Let's share what's working and what's not working, because that's how we raise the bar for everybody.
Yeah. We're going to talk in just a moment about exercise number 5. But a reminder that you're listening to Tell Me Your Story. Julie Wignall is my guest. And this is where you find out about new paradigms for a new world. Tell me your story. Intuition is a subject that is at the top of our list because it is one of those things that we talk about on every program, encouraging people to spend time during this, the decade of perfect vision. Tell you, the 2020s came along at just the right time for me. And spend some time going within in that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place, listening to that still small voice. Now, one of my guests a few years back said, "Well, yeah, but how can you be sure that the voice you're listening to isn't that one that says, I want you to kill your family. I want you to take out your entire company of people, you know, and the list. And we have people that kind of happens. And I'm not sure what's going on there. And that's not what we're here to talk about. When you do start to cultivate intuition, Julie, how do you do that? And how, and this I think is a valid question, how do we make sure that the voice that we're hearing or the impressions that we are getting are coming from a source that we might define as divine or higher?
I'm going to make it really simple to tell
Thank
you
you.
that voice is divine and higher. It's not going to tell you to do anything mean. And it's not going to tell you to go rob a bank. It's not going to tell you to steal something or to do anything that's negative. I had a mentor many years ago. You might find this interesting that went and spent a year and a half. There are a lot of things that biologists don't always share. And that's why I'm here is to pull the curtain away. Um, he went and lived on an island in between Australia and Singapore. There are thousands upon thousands of islands there. This was an island where the people who lived there were known for having these very, very high levels of ESP, extrasensory perception. And they were psychic and they knew things. And he said, well, I'm a scientist. I want to go and find out. And he spent a year and a half. And Richard, you know what he learned? He said, this is good news and sad news all at the same time. These people are doing things that anybody would call psychic, but they're not psychic. They're really in tune with nature.
Mm,
This is all about nature. He said, this is a group where they train people within the tribe to, for example, can go down under the water. Now, if you've ever been under the water in a swimming pool or whatever, I don't know about you, but maybe I hear pumps. That's or
hmm
even ocean, not really much with anything. They train them how to go down and how to listen and how to open up all of those senses so that they'll come back in and they'll say, there's a ship coming and it's probably about a week away. Here's the weather that's coming. Where we go, how do you get that in tune with everything? Well, look at us. How in tune can we be with our environment? We walk on asphalt and cement sidewalks, little patches of grass. We get into our cars. We've really separated ourselves from nature very much. So part of that is the more you can connect with nature, the more it opens up all of those senses to be able to receive that. But you can't just do it to say, oh, I'm going to be aware for these 5 minutes or my hour walk in nature. You need to increase your awareness constantly. And as you start paying attention to yourself, and I don't know if you've ever had the experience where I'll say, gosh, you're acting really kind of snarky. Are you okay? And someone will start go, oh my gosh, I just realized I have a really bad headache. How could you not know that? Um, and we start with really being aware of ourselves, how we feel from head to toe, and then start being aware of those around us, which is why I give the grocery store exercise. How aware are you when you go into the grocery store? The same thing holds true with when you're in a car. You go, oh, I'm going to be very, very centered today and very aligned and very aware. Oh, that idiot just cut me off.
hmm
Ah, how aware are we when we do something like that? And when we start getting into that alignment, we do get more and more pings. We get an easy way to start that I always tell people is ask for signs. Ask for signs, I'm on the right path. I'm doing what I need to do, or I'm getting this message that I think is a divine piece of intuition. Ask for a sign. I actually just did this just last week and it was kind of crazy. Um, I went, oh, am I going down the right path? I think I am. I'm getting these signs, but I'm not sure. And I was putting on a pair of earrings and they had seahorses on them. I live in the desert. And I went, I need a sign from a seahorse. And I said, you know what? This is really silly.
Mm.
Where am I going to find a sign of a seahorse? And I will bring this out because I now keep this on my desk. I walked into a used bookstore and there was a book with a seahorse on it,
Ah,
front and center. You never know where these signs are coming from or how they are, but they are ways to validate that you're honing in on your intuition. And when
mm,
you talk to these big business guys and CEOs that have been very, very successful, they always start by telling you, a lot of their success is due to intuition.
mm.
Where does that come from? It's a combination of studying and information and combining that with sensory, opening up your senses and getting that feel for what's going on.
I started what turned into my book. It was a journal back in 1994 when I first got into computers. Now, as you've heard, my book is Choices, 5 Steps for Life. Well, the first computer I ever worked on, and I started writing this journal slash book, it was a computer that had no hard drive. It was a small little like suitcase, and it had two floppy drives, and you'd put one in the A, and that was your operating system, and B was the program you were going to run. The name of the program that I used to start writing was called First Choice.
Oh,
Blew me away. All right. So, that being said, I took many segments from that journal from 94 to probably 98 or 99, and I incorporated them into my book. And this is a section near the end of chapter 5 having to do with be your choice. And I was sharing about my experiences with my still small voice, I've always referred to as my friend. And this is, when I was reading it for Audible, I'm going, wait a minute, that's not me speaking. And I didn't realize I had written this, but this is what, and it's not that long. Today, as we gather in high places to follow your path, we saw you going forward and growing in ways never before imagined. You have so much to offer people, and you will have the opportunity to do just that as you follow through with this path. The journey is yours to choose. We cannot make the choice for you. Remember that you aren't making a right or wrong choice. You're making a choice to learn from. Today is your today is your today as you transcend the old path to a new one of joy and peace and love and service. You will serve those who come to you looking for guidance. Be gentle, kind, and above all, focused. Focus on the vision of service to all of humanity. More will be required of you in different ways. You will lose some responsibilities and gain others.
wow.
When I saw that and I was reading that, I'm going, huh? I mean, I understood what was being said, and it went back as I was of course putting this together last year. I actually got it published in September, so I made a commitment to myself that on the 17th anniversary of this program, it was going to be published, and I had lots of deadlines over the last 20 years, but I finally met the deadline. But as I was even reading it to edit it, and I came across it, it didn't click until I read it out loud. And I thought, wow, okay, that stays in, no question, no problem. But it's like the guidance has always been there.
We just need to learn how to listen.
Yeah.
We can all tap into that collective, that one mind. It's all there. That saying that when you want to do something, the entire universe conspires to help make it so. things like writing books, you tap into a different universal energy where it's like you download information going, I'm not sure where that came from, but I'm going to have gratitude for it and I'm going to
Yeah.
share with the world. And
Well, you have another element here that we're going to just mention before we wrap things up. Are you ready to shine brighter? Imagine a future where you amplify your impact, expand your influence, and increase your income. I like the last one. Now, ask yourself, how committed are you to asking this? How committed are you to making this happen? What steps do you need to take to move forward? And which opens up for those who are watching and listening a free discovery call. You can book a free session with Julie to gain fresh insights and unlock clarity that propels you towards your next big step. And something I learned not long ago when we talk about life's purpose, I love a new word that I'm incorporating as life's purpose: blueprint.
I like that.
And the reason why blueprint works so well is because a blueprint can a blueprint can be changed. Now, granted, I know that they will take the drawings that the architect does and they'll run them through a scanner and then they'll print them out. Okay, but the blueprint that's being created, and that's what we're doing, is being created with pencil, which means it can be erased and the line can be moved over a half inch or three-quarters of an inch and what have you. And the I don't know the names of all of the parts of the plumbing and the electrical and so on and so forth. Oh, we're going to reroute it this way instead of that way because this is a load-bearing wall and blah blah blah. And I think it's a better metaphor, a blueprint.
I agree. That's why when I talk about strategic plans, I talk about strategic action plans because you take action and then they got to change. One of the saddest things is when someone has a great idea and they say, but I want to do this. But all the doors closed on me. I tried this and I tried this. I couldn't get anybody to respond. So I quit because the message from the universe is obviously this isn't what I'm supposed to do. And it's like, no, the message from the universe is try another door. Do that paradigm shift that you're talking about. Be a little bit unconventional. Let's be creative and let's go find some new doors to open. It's
Yeah.
not shut it down. It's move forward, but move forward in a different way. And that can be hard, which is why I put everybody on a mailing list of just once a week, sending out just a small tidbit of inspiration and encouragement because I think we all need it. And we all need something that just remembers that reminds us to sparkle and to shine a little bit brighter.
How valuable do you think this final question is? And I'll ask this of you before we wrap up. You've heard this many times in interviews, and the question is, so and so, what would you tell your younger self? And sometimes they'll give it an age, your 15-year-old self, your 20-year-old self. Um, do you think that that is a valuable question for us to be asking ourselves as we are working on redefining or even defining our blueprint?
And then I'm going to tell you yes and no, because at younger ages, I thought about that a lot. And then you've got the people, oh, write the letter to yourself, letting yourself know that everything is okay. We need to start when we're younger, just letting everybody know everything is okay, that you have the power, everything that you want can really take place, that you're not making any mistakes. Everything I've had so many different careers and everything that I've done to this day, I would not be the person that I am without that. So, my only advice to anybody would be don't worry about the future. Let's be in the moment, be here
Mhm.
now, in the present, and enjoy it. And just know wherever it's going, it's something that is going to benefit you and benefit you as a human being in terms of your own wholeness.
The website, once again, is extraordinaryfireflies.com, extraordinaryfireflies.com. Julie Wignall is my guest, and this is Tell Me Your Story. We have come to the final portion of our program, Julie, where we ask those three questions we ask all of our guests. But first, thank you so much for giving us so much time here on the program to talk about this, heck, I'll call it a philosophy, if you will, of being a firefly, and learning the extraordinary power of the firefly. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I've really, really appreciated this.
We also want to remind you and thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, where we are giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. We are here on Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 a.m., and Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m., streaming live at all those times at richarddugan.com. We also are podcasting on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and many other locations. We are also on YouTube, where you can watch these conversations. I hope you'll subscribe and click notification more so that you'll be notified the next time I post a conversation. And then a reminder that Choices, 5 Steps for Life is available on Amazon, and it is in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle. We also ask that if you could support the work that we are doing financially, we would be gratefully appreciated. And I want to thank you for those who have helped and to those who will help. And then a reminder, as if you needed one, to take time during the decade of perfect vision, to spend time going within to that quiet, peaceful, calm, still place and listening to that still, small voice. With all of that being said, we move to our final three questions for a very special guest, which I'm pretty sure we're going to have her back again because we only scratched the surface of this book that we've been talking about, The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies. Who is Julie Wignall?
An unconventional thought leader, change maker, and mentor to thought leaders and change makers around the globe. I work at empowering people to have the tools that they need to shine brighter in their own way.
What gets you up in the morning?
Knowing that I get to connect with people and nature and the world, that I get to continue to grow and to enjoy every minute and remembering the wonders of the world around us.
And finally, what was your best day?
Today. And I will tell you, my best day will be, I hope to say tomorrow. Being here every day, we start anew, and it's a new opportunity. It's a new opportunity to make connections. It's a new opportunity to dive deeper within, to do that work, to grow and expand and connect with people just like you. So yes, today is that day.
Well, we thank you for taking time today to share with us, and we thank you for listening to and watching Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. And until our next broadcast, podcast, videocast, love to Lal. Jeanette, I am still listening. Dad, continue to be happy because I am. Smokey, I'll see you on the other side. Mike, thanks for letting me be a part of your life. And to my dear friend Zorro, aho, aho.